Spotify. I need to fix that later. Alright, anyway. So what I have been seeing when I've been coaching people is that a lot of them just start at the enemy red buff. Like they use the information of knowing that most people start on the bottom side to just start at the enemy red buff. That way they do something like, I wish I can change the color of these lines. That'd be really cool. I'll do X's for the blue side. So X is over here, O's over here. This is a really horrible X. Let me move this guy too. So they start here and then they go here, and then I'm not sure whether they do the wolves or not. They do something like this. So let's talk about like the pros and cons of like actually just starting at your enemy buff. Now, let's talk about the scenarios where you want to be like, if you're Warwick versus Nidalee, for example, and you want to be on the same side of your opponent. So Warwick wants to be on the same side of Nidalee because Warwick can beat Nidalee. Excuse me. Well, if you start at the red, how do you end up staying on the same side of Nidalee? Because you don't want to do the red and then either of these, right? Because Warwick is really slow at doing those. So you have to do a different option. What I'm thinking about right now is what time this spawns. I know if you do this, they spawn. I think you have to do 2 camps for the Blasted Pit to spawn. And I think you have to do 2 camps before the Scuttle Crab usually spawns, right? So if you start at the red, you're pretty much forced into doing like a level 2 cheese across middle to find yourself on the bottom side. Or to go back to your jungle and do your blue. If you go middle, well, you're already failing in the staying on the same side as the enemy jungler, because obviously you're running away from them. They're going to be going like this, and you're going like this, and so now you're not on the same side of Nidalee, and you can't punish her, right? Like, you've punished her by taking her red, but that's not that big of a punishment, because she still gets her other camps, and she might just invade your blue. So I don't think like doing red in the middle is the greatest pathing, and adds a lot of counterplay from their opponent. So now let's look at the other option. Like I said, you can't really do these with most champions just because it's just a waste of time to do like the multiple camps buffs or camps, multiple minion buffs. Wow, I'm saying it wrong. Multiple monster camps. That's what I meant to say. So let's say you do this to this. And so you did 1-2, they did 1-2, and so they're probably like around here, assuming you have a very even speed jungler. They're around here, you're here. So your options here are like go to the Scuttle Crab, but if you do buff Scuttle Crab without an ESP Quint, you're gonna be level 2 still. So this looks kind of bad in my opinion. Your other option would be like just run them back over here to contest their Raptors, or try to beat them level 2 to level 2. Which some champions could do that. Lee Sin maybe could do that. But this seems like an awful lot of running, where if they end up doing this, you just run around like an idiot, and they just outplay the shit out of you. Slayman, what we're talking about here is I've coached 2 different people who almost always start at the enemy buffs. And that used to be a very popular thing. I'm sure you remember. It used to be a really popular thing, but it kind of went away as like the buffs started being less important as they used to be, right? And so I'm trying to see the risk reward to actually doing that. So 1, 2, 3, and then this isn't here, and you go 1, 2, and then you're 3. Like I said, going back to the Raptors is kind of weird. Fighting them at level 2 is like a thing, but if you're gonna fight them at level 2, there's pathings where you just do your red to their red, which is still risky, but at least here you have a red buff when you invade them. I guess you have a red buff here, but you're not running back and forth, and you have a whole jungle camp. Like if this doesn't work, you have your whole jungle to go back to. But this is like a thing, but that's only a thing with like Lee Sin or like champions at level 2 that are actually very, very strong. So this seems like such a rare scenario where you do red, blue, then red, or red, blue, then Scuttle Crab, because you won't hit level 3 on Scuttle Crab. So you do the red, and then let's say okay, I just want to take the red, and I'm out of there. Peace, right? You do their red, and then you do your blue, and then let's say you just start going into full clear mode, right? So you do this. Well, number one, like I said, if you're the Warwick versus Nidalee scenario, you're pathing away from your opponent. The only way to really stay here would be red, blue, Gromp, counter gank top, which isn't horrible. It's just weird. Actually, that one sounds not as bad as the other ones. Let me go through the point that I just drew out. So you do 1, 2, and you just run away from them. So 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, and then they're running. You did 1, 2, and by the time you're done with here, they're here. So by the time they get here, you're already starting your Gromp. And so once they get here and this red buff is in here, yeah, what's going to be their option? It's probably not to do Scuttle Crab, because again, if they don't have an ESP coin, they're not going to get level 3 on the Scuttle Crab. Which means they probably have to go for a gank, which would be very predictable for you. Especially because you could ward on your way out, so you could ward this on your way out. So your mid lane should be completely safe, and the only thing you have to worry about top is top, and that way you could do 1, 2, and if you think your top can get ganked because he's pushed up, you could counter like this, and you'll be level 3. That actually doesn't sound that bad, but I've never seen any of them do that. So if you're in a game where you feel like you can take red, and you know that your top lane is going to be pushing, this doesn't seem that bad, especially versus a jungler an enemy jungler who has a hard time doing these two camps. Because that's his only other option. He's either going to do these two camps, or he's going to gank. You can neutralize this gank by having a ward here, and you can more than neutralize the top gank by hitting this plant. The plant's here. That's why that arrow's there, by the way. So run over, you hit the plant, and now you're in the top bush. And then whenever that Nidalee comes top, you can jump on it, right? And then if this works out well, you can like invade. So that pathing looks normal. Yeah, Malorites, that's what I'm saying. Like, I need to erase some of this line so it's not so crazy anymore. I think this one doesn't look that bad. If they do 1, 2, go here, and you do 1, 2, 3, and ward on your way out, this one doesn't actually look that bad. It's just situational. And obviously, if you get warded during any of this, like I said, they can do this pathing instead. But that's pretty unlikely until like much higher elo. Yeah, that's what I figured you were talking about. This one actually doesn't sound that bad. I've never done this pathing ever. So when can you do this pathing? I think you can do this pathing whenever you're playing against a jungler that has a hard. Because again, if let's say this person's playing a Mumu, and you do this. Well, this is gonna. You always have to keep in mind it's gonna be a level 2 Mumu, right? Or a level 2 anybody. So a lot of champions can't actually gank until level 3. So you can't really predict that they're gonna gank. If they don't have, like, for example, if I'm Elise and I do this, I'm not gonna force a gank because I don't even have Cocoon yet. So I'm actually kind of forced to do one of these, huh? So I'm actually kind of forced to do one of these. Which means our 1, 2, 3 is going to be too fast. We'd end up waiting here for too long. So maybe we do 1, 2, 3 Scuttle Crab. And then while they're doing this, we're doing Scuttle Crab. Which actually will help us heal a little bit because you don't take any health and you regenerate from it. The other option would be red, blue, wolves, Gromp top. If you can do it fast enough. But if you force them to do this and you ward this, that's actually not that bad. Huh. Now, obviously, the biggest problem, like, generally here, is that if the main lane that you want to be applying pressure to is the bot lane, well, we're not doing that. That's kind of unlucky, right? I like this, though. This actually isn't that bad. I had to think through it a little bit. I kind of like the idea of trying to do your blue, then wolves, then Gromp. That way, after you go contest them over here, you can go back to Scuttle Crab and then contest them again somewhere else. I'm gonna clear that. What are your guys' thoughts? No thoughts. All right, so that's my breakdown of starting the enemy buff. Now, obviously, it's gonna be somewhat different if you start their blue buff. So they're doing this is X's, this is O's. They do one, or let's say they do one, 2, 3. Except that this is gonna be gone. So they do 1, 2. You do 1. Now, see, it's different on this side, because these camps are not nearly as big of a deal, because they're much easier to do. So you can do this and then run back. But this time, like when we were on the blue side, we could stall time by doing like camps on our side of the jungle. But here, if you do this stalling time here isn't very good for on a lot of champions. And same thing for Krugs. So now it's much uglier looking when you're on the red side. Now we could try to stall time by doing wolves directly into Gromp. Blasting plant. You wouldn't want to do the Scuttle Crab. You don't want to hit level 3. So like blasting plant red buff? That looks so ugly though. So they would do 1, 2, 3. And by the time they got here, you would be 1, 2. You'd probably be around here. And so what do they do after this is gone? It's just this is like that same scenario that we were just talking about. So they go to wolves, maybe? It's either wolves. It's the same scenario. Oh wait. If you start Raptors, now you still wouldn't hit level 3 if you're doing the Scuttle Crab unless you had an ESP Quinn. So they probably need to do wolves. So if they run here, at that point you're even with them. You're on your buff, and you're both on camps. So you're both doing your third camp here. So right here, you actually don't have an advantage like we did in the last one. Now it looks better if they don't do Raptors. If they do X, and then they go over here, and you're over here, then they have like nothing really good to do. They might run all the way back over to the Raptors. So this pathing only looks like it would be anywhere near viable if your opponent was going to do red wolves then blue. If they do Raptors red then go over the blue, their pathing is still going to be fine. Like they're going to go here, you're going to be here, they're going to be there, and then they're going to just run over and do their other stuff. And now you're on the same side of the map as them, but like in a really weird way compared to the last time. They also have the opportunity to go up to the Scuttle Crab after they do the wolves. So like in that scenario, like it's pretty bad. So I don't think doing their blue buff. Wait, let me just clear it. So I think if you do their blue buff, you pretty much have to do their Gromp. But if they do Raptors and you do this, you've gone even, and you can't control where they're gonna be anymore. So I don't think this is that good. Unless you have like a hard read that they're not going to start Raptors, they're going to start red. Because like I said, it looks a lot better if they have to do this. And then this is gone and the Gromp is gone. That looks a lot better. So in order to invade on the red side on your enemy buff, your opponent can't be starting Raptors, is basically what I'm saying. Alright, let me read about what you're saying. Honestly, if you switch sides, then it might be worth taking the red. Is a great because they don't have as much game pressure. But if you still someone's blue is very mana reliant, then they can be in a really bad spot. That is definitely true as well. And it's also true that especially at lower elos, even mana reliant champions won't actually start at blue even though they should. So that is worth it. That's something I should factor in. So even if you get into that really weird scenario where you can't decide where they're going to go and you've gone evens currently, at least then they don't have blue buff. So I understand that. I might try these in some of my games. Start your red, do their blue. See, if you go red, then blue, then Gromp, it's very likely they're going to run into you right here. Because this is your third action. and they're going to be right here on their third action. So 1, 2, 3, and then you're doing 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be a little awkward right here. So I'm not sure about that one. Yeah, but again, if they did this pathing, they're gonna run over the Grump. So even if you pull it up, they're gonna run into you, most likely. Because again, they not have no other option. If they did Raptors, maybe they run back to the Wolves and they don't see you. But that seems like a little too risque for me. It really depends on the jungle matchup plus how the enemy jungler reacts. It also depends on how much their top mid will be pressure. There are too many possible scenarios. I disagree. I think that's true at like much higher elos when you have to worry about a lot more scenarios and you have to work with your teammates and make sure that the bad scenarios are mitigated. But I think until like high challenger you can do this and have a pretty good idea what your opponent's gonna do. You've been spamming, so you're saying you're doing 1, 2, and then you're pulling this up here for your third. If they do this, and run here, I feel like it's pretty likely they're going to run in this direction. And doing these two camps is faster than doing double buffs on most champions. Now, if they do 1, 2, 3, obviously you're out of there, you're peace. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier, where it depends on whether you know whether you're or have like a good idea whether your opponent's gonna do Raptor start or Red start. So there's some fancy pathing you can do that I never really considered before, but it's way more reliant, at least on the red side, it's way more reliant on which buff, if they start a buff or a camp. On the blue side, you have more leeway, but you have less reward because of what you were saying with taking a blue buff can be way more detrimental than taking a red buff. So, it's pretty interesting, I think. Now, I have to make sure I continuously make sure I look in this in terms of like if you're the stronger jungler. So if you're the stronger jungler and you do 1, 2, 3 and you run out, so the weaker jungler is right here. They're forced to be on the same side of you for like a little while at Scuttle Crab. So if you just run back and you do Scuttle Crab, you pretty much shut them down, and you force them to like back or force them to ganks, and you drop a ward like you can drop a ward here, maybe, because you're gonna have the plant or you're gonna have the Scuttle Crab. I wonder if you drop a ward here, if you drop a ward here, probably here. So you do this, and then this guy's pretty screwed. He has no blasting plant, so the only thing you really could do is like hug this wall. But obviously you can know whether that's going to be his plan depending on where the situation in top is. Yeah, you're gonna use the blast gun on your way out. I know. That's pretty interesting. Maybe I'll play some games maybe today, and I'll try doing some starting my opponent's buff starts. Now, obviously, worth mentioning that starting your opponent's buff, if you don't get a leash from your teammates, is going to slow the pathing down. And depending on what kind of jungler you are, it's going to be very, very hard. I think Elise could do it. Not amazingly, but she can do it. Lee Sin obviously can do it. Shyvana can do it. But certain junglers are going to have a pretty hard time with that. Unless you get a leash, then you should be fine. You should have both your trinket wards up at that time. I'm not actually sure about the timing. Let's figure it out real quick. I know you have. I'm not sure like the time that you have two. Let me just check if I can see it on here without going in game. I feel like that the stream elements thing spams that a little bit too much. I'm gonna have to make it slower. Trinket. Every 180 seconds based on your level. Your original level whenever you put your first ward. I wonder how that works. So let's say it's 175. We'll put it in the middle. So that's 2 minutes and 25 seconds. And when does it start counting? I'm just gonna go in game. It'll be simpler to figure it out in game. I'm gonna download a replay. What account am I on? Wow, I lost this many games. Well, I had a feeder. I'm surprised I lost so many games. Whatever. Let's look at this game. Huh, I'm confused. What happened to these games? Alright, let's go ahead and look at it. So the main thing I'm looking at is when do you actually have your second trinket ward? Usually you get done with your third camp around, like, depending on what champion you are, between 2 minutes and 50 seconds and like 3 minutes and 10 seconds. And depending on what camps you do. And depending on whether you cross the middle of the map to get to the other side of the map, or if you just stay, like, if you do blue, can I ping? If you do blue wolves gromp, obviously that's much faster than doing blue wolves all the way and running all the way to red. Alright, let's figure it out. Alright, so my trinket's already almost going over. So third camp. Okay, I don't think you won't have 2 trinket wards, because the route that I took is much slower than doing red blue gromp. Maybe well, actually, by the time you finish your scuttle crab, it'll be pretty close. But you don't want to sit here waiting for a ward, right? I don't think you'll have your second. You won't have your second trinket yet. Like, you get it around now. If you go red, blue, gromp, that'd be 4 actions. I've done 3. I mean, I guess I could have done 4 actions there. It's close. It kind of depends on what jungler you are. If you're a fast jungle clearer, you probably can't do it. You won't, or you probably wouldn't have 2 wards. Like, obviously you can do it. I was just wondering whether you had 2 wards or not. So you get your 2 wards around 3:10 ish. Why does Draven get it faster than me? Draven got at 308. Is that a bug? Why do the 80 carries have 2? Oh no, okay, never mind. Okay. So around 308 is when you get the second one. Why are you doing their buff? 1, 2. I don't think you'd ever ward over the wall. Because the only time I mean, you could, but where's my rift kit? So if you go 1, 2 and then you ward over, like, what does that really do for you? If they did red and they run straight to you and they hit over the plant, you still want to be here. You still want to be. You can't just give it up and run away and give up the blue, because then you're fucked. So this ward I don't think actually changes anything. If they run over this wall, hi, you know. I feel like if you think if he comes like this, you have to run away, you should just never do this. So if you feel like your level 2 to level 2 is a negative situation, you shouldn't even do this in the first place. Alright. Okay, well, that's what I want to kind of go over, the first thing in the stream.